Hey everybody, how you going? It's Filipa Bellette from Chris and Philly Functional Medicine. I'm going to do a little web class today, all about the adrenals. So what they are, what they do, and I also wanted to give you an insight into how we can actually test to see what our stress hormones are doing. And also what different stages of adrenal fatigue look like, what adrenal fatigue is, and also how it can actually manifest physically, emotionally in your life and how it can make you feel if you're out of whack. So, let me see if I can open up comments. So anyone who jumps on live, feel free to ask any comments. I'm happy to ask any any questions that you might have at the end. So pop them up in the comments as we're going through, or if you're watching this back as a recording, you're welcome to do that as well. I want this to be as applicable to you rather than just me blabbing on. I do love the science and the testing and the body side of things, so I could blab on all day. But if you have any specific things that you want to know, let me know. Okay, so I want to screen share. Here we go. Is that going to work? Oh dear, why is this not screen sharing? There we go. Woohoo! Okay, so I have a few slides. Again, won't keep you for too long, but I just wanted to give you a bit of a context about what the adrenals are. So this is a bird's eye view of our body systems and all the things that we can test for and that we treat. And they're the things or the major body systems where things go wrong, which can lead to symptoms, conditions, and diseases. And then from there, once we understand what body systems are out of whack, we will then look for the root cause as to why those body systems have burnt out, and that is how we treat you. So on here, we've got the neuroendocrine system, the GI system, the detox system. I've done some previous web classes on the testing that we do for some of these gut markers and also the mitochondria markers. So my plan is to kind of work through these things so that you can get a really good insight as to the amazing things that you can learn about in your body when we use specialized lab testing. So we've got the adrenals right up here. Oh, sorry, I'm actually using here we go. We've got the adrenals there. I was using my mouse and realized that you guys cannot see that. So I have my little laser pen now. So the adrenals sit on top of your kidneys and they secrete your stress hormones, cortisol. Most people have heard of that. And DHEA. Most people haven't heard of that one. So cortisol is the fight, flight response hormone. When you're under stress, the tiger's chasing you, your cortisol rises, and then your DHEA stress hormone should start secreting in your body. And once it reaches a threshold of cortisol in your bloodstream, it then starts bringing cortisol back down. That's the nice normal thing to happen. Then, once you're away from danger and you have some chill out time, the stress hormones are nice and balanced, ready for when you need to use cortisol again. Now, the thing is that a lot of people, especially in our modern Western society, are constantly living with chronic levels of stress. And that is not, I'll come back up to that one. Main causes of adrenal fatigue, or these are some of the main causes of stress. So when Chris and I talk about stress with our clients, or probably more with people who aren't yet our clients, when we talk about stress, a lot of people say, oh, but, a lot of people do say, oh, I'm so stressed. But then there's a bunch of people that say, well, I'm not really stressed. So stress comes in many forms. So we've got emotional stress, and that's what a lot of people think about when we say, are you stressed, or is your body stressed? So emotional stress would be busyness of life, juggling kids and work, financial stresses. It could be educational stresses. It could be trauma from the past or current trauma. It could be relationship issues. All of these things are what make emotional stress. But then there's a bunch of other stuff that can cause stress to our bodies, which can burn out the adrenals. So even if someone feels like they actually have everything like in check in their life and they don't have a lot of those extra emotional stresses. If they have dietary stresses, if they have pain in the body or hidden inflammation, these are all things that will also wear down your adrenals. So dietary stress would look like things like sugar, too much sugar, or inflammatory foods. For some people it might be dairy or gluten or just processed crap, trans fats, macas, all that sort of stuff, artificial flavorings, preservatives. The big thing with sugar, so there's a big picture of a donut there, is that when you eat sugar, your blood sugar levels rise, and this actually puts your body in a stress state, and your cortisol levels rise as well. And then most people know that when you eat a bucket load of sugar, at some point your blood sugar levels are going to crash down. This will cause more stress. So even when your blood sugar levels are dropping, your cortisol levels stay up because your body's in a stress state. And even people who might actually have good quality food, but maybe they're not eating enough or the calories is too restricted, that can also put you into constant blood sugar level lows, which can cause adrenal fatigue. Or if you're in adrenal fatigue, it can lead to a lot of adrenal issues as well. Now, everyone always says, well, what about intermittent fasting? Isn't that healthy? And yes, that is one type of healing diet, which has been shown to be that can be very healthy. But I often find that people who are in lower stages of adrenal fatigue, where their hormones are just really, really depleted, don't do very well with fasting. And in fact, it can often make them feel worse. So again, when it comes to diet, it's more about what's happening inside your body, around you, and just working out your own individualized nutrition. If you're in pain, so that could be musculoskeletal pain, injuries, old niggles, it could be migraines, headaches, it could be gut issues, gut pain, period pain, all these types of pain, again, very stressful to the body. So that will put pressure on your adrenals and your secretion of your stress hormones. And last, we've got hidden inflammation. So this is where, if I jump back up to this one, this is where sometimes people have nasty stuff happening either in their gut or in their detoxification system. So you might have some nasty pathogens. You might have leaky gut. You might have detox impairments where you're just not clearing toxins very well, so you become very inflamed. Those things are going to stress out the body too. So even if you have no emotional stress, your diet is perfect, you have no pain physically that you can feel, if you have issues with your liver detox system not clearing toxins very well, or if you have some stealthy, nasty stuff happening inside the gut, that's enough to also put you into adrenal fatigue. And so that's also what I meant too about, okay, so it's good to find out what's out of whack. So for example, the adrenals, I'll show you some tests in a second, but if we do a test and you're in some sort of stage of adrenal fatigue, then we got to ask, okay, well, why? What are some of these things that might be causing the adrenals to go out of whack? I mean, there's so much work that we can do here for emotional stress. That is Chris's domain. But then sometimes too, it's like, well, sometimes you just need to do a little bit more digging inside the body as well, because there's other sources of hidden inflammation. And then we ask again, okay, you got detox issues. Well, why is that? Are you exposed to too many toxins? Is it genetic issues? Is it environmental? Is there something going on in your environment where you're just not able to clear toxins very well, or you're exposed to too many toxins? Okay, the last little slide that I wanted to show before I then get into the tests is how your body falls apart. So here we have okay, let me start from the beginning. So usually your body starts falling apart when something nasty happens. And usually it's by some sort of major life event. So there could be a death in your family, or a close friend, or maybe your child dies, or even like having a miscarriage or a stillbirth. That sort of stuff is very emotional. Grief is a very heavy thing. You may have a divorce, so you may get a divorce with your partner, or you may have a nasty relationship breakup. that is also a very stressful time. And for some people, that can drag on for years and years and years and years. Even after the divorce, you could be exposed to a lot of emotional stress. Then there's also childbirth. So for mamas, we have this extra thing that can cause our bodies to fall apart, that can stress out our systems. So when you start having babies, growing them, breastfeeding, sleepless nights, all of these things are quite stressful for the body. They leach, the baby leaches nutrients from you. The baby will literally, when they're growing, they will suck all the good stuff from you and leave you with the dregs, basically. So if you already have nutritional deficiencies or you're not eating enough of a nutritional diet, you're going to be left pretty depleted by the time the baby comes. Then you add all this extra stress of trying to even like work out how to be a mum, how to look after this little crying thing. And also those sleepless nights, which are very stressful in themselves as well. I probably should just go back to that. There's also a lot more other stresses too. It's not just these four, but they're kind of the main ones. I'd also be thinking about EMFs. I'd be thinking about mold. I'd be thinking about lack of sleep, too much movement, not enough movement, and, you know, or the emotional stuff that can just cause us inner stress as well. Okay. And then overwork. So, you know, a lot of our clients or people who are attracted to what we do are hardworking, high performance people, and you want to be the best that you can be and have optimal health. And that often also comes along with having big aspirations for your profession, for your business that you're building, or, you know, or showing up as the leader that you want to be. And, you know, it's really hard to balance that. And so a lot of people get stuck with overworking, and especially moms who are working and then they come home and you still like, most moms are still the primary caregiver, primary housewife, keeping everything neat and tidy and like clothes washed and all that sort of stuff. That's stereotypical. I'm sure there's like some wonderful dads that do that, but generally that's the case. Okay, so once all this stuff happens, the stress can cause your adrenals and also your neurotransmitters. They can literally go into exhaustion. Once that happens, so once you're in adrenal fatigue or your neurotransmitters are depleted, which is a whole other video that I'll do another time, you will go into what's called adrenal fatigue. Now, this isn't a medical term by any at all. It's an old term that was coined by, I think, naturopaths 10, 20, 50 years ago. There's no it's not a scientific label, which is why if you were to say, oh, I have adrenal fatigue to your doctor, they probably just kind of laugh at you and say, well, that doesn't exist, because adrenal fatigue doesn't exist. The actual term is a dysfunction in your or an imbalance in your hypothalamus pituitary gland adrenal axis. But how hard is that to say? So when we throw around the word adrenal fatigue, that's what we're talking about. Over time too, the stress will break down the gut, and then over time too, this can lead to a toxin buildup. And so then it just becomes this vicious cycle where, you know, then you've got this internal hidden inflammation which is stressing the body, and it just continues to stress out the adrenals more, and then these other body systems break down, and then life just goes to poo basically. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, put it in the comments. Also, if you're watching back the recording, let me know that too. I'm just going to stop screen sharing for a second. Actually, I probably might not need to. Okay. I just want to pull up another slide. Where's module 6? Move. Oh, hello, pretty looking people. Okay. So I want to pull up some slides for the adrenals. Oh, actually, I forgot to show you one more thing. Dang it. Let me just go back. Sorry. This is really good because this is kind of like a bit of a light bulb moment for a lot of people, wondering like, oh, is this an issue for me? Okay, so let's just, before I move on, I just want to show you symptoms of adrenal fatigue. So as I'm going through these, maybe just like count them up on your hand and see how many symptoms you might have. So you can have fatigue, you can have weight gain issues, fatigue because cortisol is your get up and go hormone. It's your energy hormone. And so if that's depleted, then you're going to feel depleted. Weight gain can become an issue because the adrenals are part of the whole metabolic system. So if the adrenals are fatigued, your stress hormones aren't working very well, then you can get a build up. You can start putting on weight or holding weight because you're just not fat burning very well. You can start feeling irritable, anxious, depressed. So these are all sort of like mental health stuff because you're constantly in this chronic fight or flight state where you feel like your body physically thinks that it's in danger. So you would mentally feel pretty crappy. You can also start having poor memory, lack of concentration, what I would also call brain fog, because your body is very catabolic when you're in adrenal fatigue. Your stress hormones are constantly breaking. Amino acids from your muscle tissue, minerals from your bone, and it's using up a lot of energy. And so you can literally feel foggy and like you can't remember a lot of stuff. You can start having female and also male reproductive hormone issues. So low libido is often one that we see with males or dads, definitely for females and mums as well. But also for women, you may have like PMS, infertility issues, hot flushes as you're going into menopause, or we've even had clients who have had hot flushes and they're cycling and they're like in their 30s, and that's not normal. And that is because your cortisol and DHEA interact with your progesterone, estrogen, and your testosterone. So that's going to affect your female hormones downstream. Then you can start having some of these food issues, food allergies, digestive problems, because there's quite a few different ways that cortisol switches off the gut or allows pathogens to overgrow because it's affecting the immune system. Then you can have immune system issues as well because cortisol literally suppresses your immune response. So you can be more likely to picking up colds and flus and infections. You can start having sleep issues because cortisol should be coming down at nighttime, should be nice and high in the morning, comes down at nighttime. If that doesn't happen, or if cortisol's too high, or if you just got an imbalance throughout the day, it's going to affect your melatonin production later on at night. So you can start having sleep issues. You can have food cravings, like sugar cravings, because your blood sugar levels are probably going up and down. If cortisol's not working very well, they interact with each other. Also, salt cravings is quite common as well because you're just burning through your minerals when you're in adrenal fatigue. Then you've got neck and back pain. Again, when you're in adrenal fatigue, cortisol causes your body to become very catabolic. So it literally kind of eats away at itself and you can start getting achy. So I guess just a little story just to kind of tie all these symptoms together. After I had my babies and I started, specializing and getting into functional medicine, and because I just wasn't getting very well just doing sort of like the traditional nutritional medicine type approach. Also, I'd tried many different modalities as well, and I just wasn't getting better. So I wanted to really find out what was going on. Anyway, I was diagnosed with stage 2 adrenal fatigue, and I could probably tick off most of these boxes. I definitely had energy issues. Definitely I had poor immune system issues. I was literally catching colds and flus every 2 or 4 weeks. It was awful. I definitely had these mental health issues. Probably anxiety was the biggest thing that really impacted my life, not just with how I felt and how I could function, but I was dragon mum, basically. I was angry and screaming all the time and a really horrible wife too. Poor Chris was walking on eggshells, not wanting to upset me because I would fly off the handle. Really, really struggled with anger issues, and also female hormone issues. I mean, I was infertile for quite a long time before we even had kids, and then PMS issues, skin issues, which all came back to imbalanced hormones. Digestive issues. I had heartburn and I was like craving sugar all the time. I tried so hard to eat well, but the hot cross buns, every time I went to the shop, I just wanted them, especially if I was like having a really stressful day. Insomnia. I mean, generally I slept okay, but if I had extra stresses, like emotional stresses, I could basically become insomniac for a week. and back pain. So really bad sciatica pain. I did injure myself after I had my first baby, but it took years. Like it was just constant pain. And it wasn't like my back wasn't getting better. And it was interesting that once I started doing all the functional medicine work, slowly over time, the pain started disappearing and, to the point where as long as I live a generally healthy life, I don't get any back pain. Okay, so let me go back to the other slide that I was going to show you. Module 6, I think this is the right one. Okay, so here, oh, dang it. Chris, you're supposed to get rid of all that. Okay, hang on. Let me just go like that. All right, I just wanted to show you some of the tests for adrenal fatigue. You know what? I'm just going to, just for the sake of time, I'm just going to leave that stuff there. That's fine. Yeah, it's all good. This is actually in one of our course modules that we do for exercise. So you get a little insight into that too. Or movement, not exercise. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. All right. So this is stage 1 adrenal fatigue. So first of all, the adrenals, we test via saliva. Now you can also test for urine and blood, and sometimes we do need to do that if someone just can't spit in a tube, and that is fine. But generally we do saliva testing. And so this looks at your DHEA levels, and it also looks at your cortisol. And the test also will actually document what your cortisol, so you can see on this one, is doing over the course of a day. So what I look at usually when I first get an adrenal test in my inbox, I will look first at what the DHEA levels are doing, because what usually happens if someone's had a chronic period of stress, their cortisol will be raging initially and DHEA will be up there trying to keep up with cortisol, and eventually DHEA starts to deplete, and then over time cortisol starts to deplete. So someone is only in adrenal fatigue if you actually have DHEA levels that are starting to drop. And this one's a little bit stealth. So this is also where you want to actually have someone who knows how to read these tests, because I've actually had clients who have done tests with other practitioners and they haven't really got any results or only got so far, and they said, oh, I've already done an adrenal test, it was fine. They've sent it through to me and I'm like, it is not fine. They just didn't read it properly. So DHEAs generally have to start dropping down in comparison to where your cortisol levels are. So this is earlier stages of adrenal fatigue. So this is where you can see on this test, there's lots and lots of cortisol being produced when it shouldn't be. So a textbook reading of cortisol would be, let's just say, hugging this top green line here. If the cortisol is up in here, then that means that you're in adrenal fatigue. And also if the DHEA levels are less than either the morning cortisol or the daily cortisol, that's a sign that your adrenals or your DHEA is starting to drop. And if we don't get on top of that now, eventually cortisol and DHEA are going to deplete further. You're going to end up in later stages of adrenal fatigue. So that's stage 1. Then we've got stage 2. Don't worry about all this stuff that's written here. Just ignore that. I forgot to delete it before. So stage 2 is where you will have low DHEA levels. So DHEA levels are starting to drop down even further. You can see here it's sort of like midline, a little bit lower. Stage 2 now, it's getting lower. But what is really the key to understanding if you're in stage 2 adrenal fatigue is where your cortisol levels are at. So you can see in this test that it's in the green range. So had we not looked at DHEA levels, it would almost be like, cortisol's a little bit low, but overall it's in the green range. So that's where some people kind of read these things and they're like, oh, your adrenals are fine, when actually this is what I would call stage 2 adrenal fatigue. So that was the case with my test. So the first test I ever did was one on myself, and it was the looking at the adrenals, and I got my test back this might even be my test. I don't know. I can't remember. And I was like, oh no, wow, that's interesting. Even though I'm super stressed, my adrenals don't look too bad. But then I showed my mentor, functional medicine mentor, Dr. Kalish, and he said, sorry, honey, look at your DHEA levels, how low they are. And then he sort of taught me how to read them properly and how to treat it. Okay, so that's stage 2 adrenal fatigue. Stage 3 adrenal fatigue is, so you're going to have low cortisol levels, DHEA levels again. And then this is really common to see when you're in later stages of adrenal fatigue, where that cortisol levels are just really depleted. You're not producing or not able to produce much cortisol anymore. So the further in adrenal fatigue you get to, I find that people get more symptomatic. So in earlier stages, some people might actually feel pretty good. They might feel like they're living on adrenaline. You know, they might feel a bit like a rooster with their head chopped off, a bit overwhelmed and like, ooh, but functionality isn't too bad. They can kind of push through work and, you know, get the kids dinner and stay up late at night folding the washing and, you know, and probably have niggling things that are going on that doesn't quite feel right, but maybe not enough to actually seek help. Then in stage 2 adrenal fatigue is where people are actually starting to notice these symptoms more, and it's actually starting to affect their life. Usually in stage 3 is when, you know, you're really flat. Some people can't get out of bed, they can't work, they have to take things really easily, they get exhausted just, you know, from walking around the block. So it can be pretty nasty, and that's why I love doing these tests, because we can generally pick up before things get that bad. And even if they are that bad, these things can be fixed and restored. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too much science. If anyone has any questions about that, you can pop them in the comment box. But I think that's all I wanted to share from my slides. And if anyone has any questions, you are welcome to pop them in the comment box. I'm happy to stick around for a little bit to answer some questions. I did get a question the other day actually from a lady about weight. I'm wanting to do a live Q&A, so I might save that one and maybe do a body systems review on that. Just because I kind of want to go over quite a few things for that one. Anyway, all right, I am going to be off. I'm actually trying to stop screen share and it's not working. Okay, I'll just leave it like that and we'll end with the adrenal test on the screen. Alrighty, cool. So I'm going to stop the live. This will be recorded or uploaded later on, or maybe immediately, in our Power Parent Society group. So you can watch back on this if you're watching it, if you missed the start. And also anyone who couldn't make it live, it will be available to watch. All right, let me know if you have any questions as well, or if you're keen to get some testing done, then feel free to send me through a private message or you can pop a comment below. All right, see ya.